No matter what, I always felt family was supposed to have your back. If one thing I have discovered over the past 4 weeks, though, it is that loyalty in my family was only one-way traffic. My name is Olivia, and I am 18 years old. I never knew how poisonous things were until the day I chose to speak up. Most people view me as simply another senior from high school, trying to survive without any drama in senior year. Still, drama found me everywhere. Emma, my older sister, had been organizing her wedding for months, and everything appeared to be going perfectly, or so we had thought. Though Emma's fiancé, Liam, was the golden boy, gentle and courteous, no one ever truly noticed the strains in their relationship. Not even me, not until I saw something odd on Emma's phone on a haphazard Wednesday. It began on a Wednesday. I know, I shouldn't have been snooping, but occasionally you do things out of curiosity. Something about her and one of her pals caught my attention as not quite right. Though the language of the talk made it very evident that she had been influencing Liam for months, it was nothing overt. She was gaslighting him, making him feel bad for things he hadn't done, and worse, blaming him for events outside of her control. Emma had behaved this way before, but this was the first time I had seen her do it so freely. That's when I realized I couldn't keep quiet anymore. Especially when Liam didn't deserve it. I couldn't watch her destroy his life. I thus followed what I saw to be the correct course of action. I phoned Liam. I didn't even second guess. I just gave him a call, shared all I had observed, and let him know what Emma had been up to. I was not sugar-coated about it. What happened next was not what I expected. Emma was emotionally manipulating him, using guilt to dominate him, and he deserved better than this. Though I could sense his world was disintegrating, he thanked me for the honesty. Though I was anxious, I reasoned at least he could now see things clearly. That night, Emma discovered I had spoken to Liam. Little did I know that one phone call would transform everything, not just for Emma and Liam, but also for me. She was incensed. Her eyes' fury directed at me was beyond anything I had ever seen. She wasn't having any of it when I attempted to explain that I wasn't trying to wreck her life. She told me I had no right to meddle in her relationship and accused me of betraying her and of ruining her wedding. Olivia! She shrieked at me, "You have no concept what it's like to love someone." I felt my gut turn over. Though I had been attempting to be helpful, I ended up playing the villain in this tale. She simply couldn't see it, despite all I attempted to clarify. She said, "You ruined everything," hurt more than I would want to admit. But deep down, I knew I had done the right thing at the same time. Liam deserved not to be in that poisonous relationship. Emma and I were too late to turn back the tide, but I was beginning to believe that perhaps it was for the best. The aftermath did not stop there. As was natural, my parents supported Emma. They were blind to the possibility that their beloved golden child might really be in the wrong. Rather, they attacked me, laying blame for damaging everything. It was about saving face now, not even about the truth. "Olivia, you have destroyed everything." One night, my mother yelled, her voice cracking with feeling. "Do you know our wedding expenses amount to what?" "Thank you. All of it is now wasted. Not much better was my dad. He persisted in talking about how I should always help my sister no matter what. Family is meant to stay together, Olivia. Emma is betrayed here, but so are all of us. The worst element is neither of them even questioned me about the reason I did what I did. They showed no interest in knowing. They simply wanted to point fingers and charge me with ruining our family. To tell the truth, though, I became apathetic. Defining myself to those unable to perceive the truth seems pointless. It was not surprising how my folks responded. The manner my extended family participated caught me off guard. My aunts, uncles, and even cousins began phoning and texting me within hours. Some of them demanded I fix things with Emma, while others went on the attack calling me selfish and irresponsible. One relative even had the audacity to call me a spiteful little brat. But the truth is, I wasn't totally alone in this. Unlike my family, Liam's family really gave the truth top priority. They did not hurry to criticize or assess me. Liam had really already informed his family what had happened, and they were entirely on his side. Not expecting that type of support from anyone, they were furious at Emma for what she had done and appreciative of me speaking out. Knowing that someone, anyone, considered me as the good person in all this, felt unusual, but also consoling. Though it provided little comfort, it helped me stay grounded. Emma's social media started to function as her personal pity party. She presented herself as the sufferer by putting nebulous statuses on sadness and treachery. Her buddies, though, were not purchasing it. They began challenging her postings, asking questions like, "Isn't there more to this story?" and "What about Olivia?" She turned off the comments entirely not too long ago. Emma was losing control of her story. The truth was beginning to slide bit by bit. About Liam? Emma was made abundantly clear by him that he would not get back together unless she apologized to our family and me. At that point, the last blow arrived. Emma declined to apologize. She informed him I was the one who had overreacted and she owed me nothing. Liam therefore ended things for good. At that point, I had no idea how I should feel. One way or another, Liam's release from Emma's control made me glad. Conversely, I was unable to get rid of guilt. Particularly with regard to my sister's life, I didn't want to ruin anything. At the same time, though, I felt I had to act morally. The whole scenario was getting more and more disorganized by the minute, and I had no idea what would come next. Clearly, though, the old family dynamics were destroyed, and there was no turning back. The next several days passed like a haze. Though I tried to resume my regular schedule, school, going out with friends, and acting as though everything was fine, it was not. It isn't possible. At home, the conflict was intolerable. Every time I entered the living room, I could feel my parents' gaze piercing into me, waiting for me to rectify the disaster I had created and to atone. It was not only my family that was disintegrating. No matter how hard they tried to make me feel bad, I was not going to apologize for revealing the truth. Emma was starting to resemble someone I hardly knew. She had not spoken to me since that evening, but I could feel her resentment seeping into all she did. She uploaded pictures of herself looking like the devastated bride-to-be with victimizing words. Not knowing the whole truth, her friends were all over her social media offering supportive comments. While I was portrayed as the villain in her drama, she had painstakingly created an image of innocence. What particularly caught me was the way my parents were supporting her. They were too consumed in their own sadness over the wedding arrangements, failing to care that I had spoken out for Liam's sake. Though it was obvious now that their allegiance was always to Emma, no matter what she did, it was not only the quiet treatment I had to deal with at home. It was the continuous barrage of phone calls, letters, and visits from relatives. I had thought they would see the wider picture. Emma's ardent supporters in my extended family began popping up at our house. Though none of them had personally listened to my side of the story, they had heard the tales from her, and now they were coming to speak about how family doesn't turn against family, and blood is thicker than water. One afternoon, around 1 week after everything collapsed, I was sitting in the kitchen when my mother entered. They all trusted Emma's version of events, hence it was even more difficult for me to stick to my position. Her face twisted with fury as she held her phone. "Olivia, we need to talk," she said, her voice cutting and icy. She wasn't questioning. There was no discussion. It was an ultimatum about what? Trying to keep my voice steady, I asked. "About you fixing things with Emma. Already you have caused sufficient damage." Her eyes narrowed as she continued, "You have to make it right and apologize to her." I found what I was hearing unbelievable. I had been nothing except sincere, nothing except attempting to support someone under control and manipulation. Still, here I was, the one expected to apologize. Setting my phone down, I looked at her at last. "Mom, I didn't damage anything. About what was happening, I told Liam the truth. I acted right." Emma's face stiffened. "If Emma cannot see it, then that is on her, not me," my voice more forceful than I felt. "You are clueless about what you have done. This goes beyond Emma as well. You have humiliated our whole family. Do you know the number of people discussing this? For us, you find it simple. You have set off a scandal, Olivia." My heart sank. I did nothing to damage the family. Emma lied to Liam. I did not do it. I left no manipulation of him. She didn't reply. "You're unhappy because things didn't go as expected, not because I did anything wrong." She simply shook her head and then exited the room. Though in that moment I understood my mother was just as blinded by family loyalty as Emma had been, I had always considered her as someone who stood for what was right. If the truth meant upsetting her ideal of what was expected, she was not ready to see it. The next few days seemed to be a never-ending guilt trip loop. My parents would mention how much money they had paid for the wedding, how many people had already registered, and how let down everyone felt. They even had the cheek to guilt-trip me into reimbursing some wedding costs. "You have to straighten things out, Olivia," my dad remarked one night, his voice worn and detached. "You have cost us so much." I was no longer merely fighting Emma. I was fighting the whole family, and all of it made me tired. Every time I looked at them, I felt as though I was residing in a stranger-filled house. Piece by piece, I could feel my allegiance to my family erasing. But even if the pressure from my parents and relatives wore me down, I was not going to give up. Could not. Not when I knew I had done the right thing. And frankly, amid all this upheaval, one person really helped me, Liam. I was beginning to question if I even needed them in my life anymore. He contacted me several times following his separation with Emma to simply check in and chat. "I don't know how to thank you, Olivia," Liam said one evening. His family was behind him, and he was spending some time working things out for himself. "You have truly opened my eyes. Emma was influencing me, so even if I felt I was acting morally by staying by her, I felt a weight release from my shoulders upon hearing him say that. I couldn't see it until now. It was the first day I felt as though I had not made a mistake." Days pass. Liam was appreciative of me personally as much as of what I did. Though it offered a little solace among all of this, things were still difficult even with Liam's help. Emma had gone radio silent most of the time, but I knew it was not permanent. Plotting her next action, she was clinging to her wrath. About a week after everything had collapsed, I then got a note from her, not a phone call. It was not a book meant to help one sort through issues. Sent over her Instagram DM, the one sentence, "You're dead to me," stung more than I had anticipated. Though I felt I was ready for it, I felt lost when I read those words. Was it truly done? Had she truly given her pride first priority over her family, above me? I wanted to answer, yell at her, tell her all I had been carrying in. I didn't, however. I simply watched the screen while seated there. I closed my phone and left, knowing that nothing I said would make any difference. The truth was, I wasn't depressed. I was relieved. Happy Emma had shown me her actual colors. Happy I didn't have to act anymore. Deep down, though, I harbored a nagging sense that I was losing a piece of my family, and for the first time I wasn't sure whether that was a negative thing. Emma's last message left silence that felt oppressive. The world seemed to have simply stopped. There was only this terrible silence that left me wondering everything, no more commotion or drama. But I discovered as the days stretched into weeks that the stillness was not as agonizing as I had assumed. Actually, it was very relieving. I spent most of that time attempting to sort out the whirlpool I had been stuck in and on myself. It was about me and what type of person I wanted to be moving ahead, not simply Emma or my family. Living under the weight of everyone else's expectations seemed intolerable to me. It wasn't fair to me, and it most definitely wasn't healthy. Originally, I had no idea where to start. I had forgotten what it was to be happy on my own after spending so much time trying to make everyone else happy and correcting events outside of my control. I began modest. I started doing things for myself, things I had put off for years because I was too busy tending to the peacekeeper, the one keeping everything together. I picked up a few past interests. I'd always liked photography, but somewhere along the road I had persuaded myself I had no time for it. I cleaned my old camera, left the city, and just started snapping images. Though there was something therapeutic about it, the first few shots were awkward. I had forgotten how serene it felt to catch the world via a lens, to stop events in time that nobody else would have noticed. Then there was the gym. It was my means of anchoring myself once more, of reawakening the part of myself buried under all the tumult. Though I had always been a little dubious about working out, after everything with Emma and my family, I needed a release. I felt awkward when I initially entered the gym. Like everyone knew I was the girl who had lately become engaged in some unpleasant family conflict. Still, I stayed with it. I began to feel physically and psychologically more robust slowly. It was about taking charge of my life again, in any form I could, not about becoming fit or looking a certain way. But the most significant change occurred in how I started viewing my relationships. Things were still confusing with Liam, but not in the manner I had anticipated. We had this kind of unsaid knowledge when we initially met. We fit. We did not have to chat constantly. Now, though, with everything that had transpired, I had no idea what we were. We seemed to be both in this state of flux, figuring out our position. Mostly via messages or the odd phone conversation, we stayed in touch, but the spark that had previously been there felt different. Though at the same time I didn't want to lose him. I didn't want to hurry things. Not after all we had gone through together. One evening, following a demanding workday, I chose to give him a call. Though I had no idea why, that moment seemed to have to happen. Though I was feeling everything but calm, I tried to keep the conversation light when I dialed his number, and after a few rings, he answered, "Hey, it's me. How's things? Very honest here." "It has been improved," I said. "Still, I'm making it through it. Regarding you." "Same," Liam said. "I have been considering all that transpired." Though he couldn't see me, I nodded and said, "Yeah, me too. I still find it amazing how messy things got. It's been really extensive. However, I wanted to touch base with you. You have gone through your own issues as well, right?" He stopped just for a moment. "Yes, I do have." Simply said, "Between us, I want nothing to get strange." Hearing him speak made my heart skip a beat. "I want you, Olivia." More than I could say, I had missed him. The reality was, though, I had to discover who I was before I could really commit to anyone, including him. "I don't want to lose you either, Liam," I replied gently, "but I feel I need some time to sort things out. You know, I cannot stay living under the shadow of my past. First, I must discover my own road." The other end of the line was quiet. I felt maybe I'd said too much for a moment, but then he spoke. "I get it," his voice honest. "Take all the time you need. I have nowhere to be headed." Simply said, "Do not let me be excluded, please. I pledged not to, I won't. I simply have to heal first." After we hung up, I got this odd sense of relief, like I had finally inhaled after holding it in for too long. I had no hurry toward anything. I was slow, which felt for once like the appropriate decision. The next few days were calm. I kept myself occupied with initiatives both personally and professionally. Emma's disappearance felt like a weight taken off my shoulders, yet I still felt a little empty, as though I was missing something. Though I had no idea what that something was, I knew I had to keep moving ahead to discover it. Then one evening, my mother messaged me. She had been somewhat remote since everything happened, but this time, the message was different. It was not a guilt trip, nor a sermon. It was just a straightforward, surprising text. "Can we talk?" It was the first indication of her candor in weeks, and for a while I didn't know how to react. Should I have a conversation with her? Was I prepared for that chat? Another part of me realized that avoiding this conversation wouldn't help either of us, so I answered even if part of me wanted to ignore it and simply keep going forward without dealing with her. "At what time?" She answered rapidly. "How would tomorrow go?" "I'll come over to your house." The next day I found myself pacing my apartment feeling as though I was about to have some major life-altering chat. Actually, I had no idea what I expected from it. I wasn't sure if I was ready to pardon her for her treatment of me or for her sidelining of Emma. But I knew I wanted closure. When she arrived, we sat down, and for the first time in a long time there was no yelling or accusing behavior. We simply spoke. "I've been thinking about everything that happened," she began, her voice lower than I would have anticipated. "I'm sorry. I know I didn't manage things well. I first said nothing, as you did not deserve to be in the middle of all this. I listened recently. We seemed to be at last on the same page, as if we were both realizing that the events had transcended both of our own capacities. This time, the quiet between us felt like we were both attempting to find our way back to each other. "I don't expect everything to go back to the way it was," she said. but I hope we can reconstruct what we had. Olivia, I don't want to lose you. And at that same instant, I understood that rebuilding meant not returning to what it was. I'm not sure what's next, Mom, I said, starting from scratch on fresh terms with new limits. But if you are, I said. We both sat silently for some time, not needing to say anything else. It was a start, not yet a happy finish. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of introspection and little cautious progress forward. Though I was learning to negotiate the uncertainties, it was not a straight road. Though subtly, my connection with my mother had started to change. Though we didn't talk every day, when we did, there was an openness not before evident. Though it wasn't perfect, it felt real, and for once, that was enough. I still spent a lot of time on my own trying to figure out what I needed to heal. To feel both lost and relieved at once was odd. Still, I had come to see that mending was not a straight-line procedure. Good days when things seemed clearer, and then horrible days when the weight of what I had gone through seemed intolerable. But one evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table drinking a cup of tea and browsing through my phone when I noticed a message from Liam. The bright days started to outnumber the bad with every day. Our last chat was a few days ago, and seeing his name show on my computer caused my heart to slightly quicken. Though I had anticipated this talk, now that it was here, I wasn't sure how to reply. That was time for that conversation. Time to clear the air and sort out our shared wants. The next evening, we met at a little cafe in the city. I couldn't keep clinging to this strange in-between condition, and I didn't want to lose him, but I also wanted to avoid rushing into anything that wasn't right for me. Perfect for a heart-to-heart, it was one of those venues with low lighting, gentle music, and a calm environment. When I got there, Liam was seated at a table by the window and looked exactly as scared as I did. His face softened as he saw me. I could tell he had been longing for this moment, too. "Hey," he began, getting up to meet me. "How's it going?" "Good," I said with a smile. Seeing him felt great, but my stomach still knelt in protest. "And you?" "Better," he remarked while reclining. "I have been giving a lot of thought, to us, about everything." I nodded, thinking the same thing. "I have also been pondering a lot, but before we discuss us, I believe we should first discuss me." Liam arched an eyebrow, clearly interested. "What do you mean?" I've forgotten who I am. I've spent so much of my life trying to solve other people's problems, my mom, my sister, everyone around me. Until I find that out, I am not ready to return to anything significant. Before I can offer somebody the type of attention they deserve, I have a lot of work to do on myself." He leaned back in his chair and listened to what I said. As he worked through it, I could see the wheels spinning in his head. "I get that," he remarked, following a beat. "I want you not pressured into anything. Simply—" The words really affected me more than I had anticipated. "I do not want to lose you, Olivia." I had never truly considered how much I mattered to him. "I don't want to lose you either," I replied softly, sensing something in his eyes, this unvarnished honesty, that changed my own emotions. Still, I have to go through things first. Although I'm not sure what it looks like yet, I cannot keep acting as though I am fine when I am not. Liam first said nothing. Before I could be right for anyone else, I needed to get right with myself. He just looked at me, and I could tell he understood. "I respect that," he murmured at last. "You take all the time you need. I am here at your side. Whatever the outcome, it mattered more to me than I could say. I felt like I wasn't being pushed into a decision I wasn't ready to make, like I wasn't being hurried, first in a long time, and that sensed good." We talked for the next several hours about life in general, how we were doing, what had been happening, not about anything really important. It was good to simply savor the discussion free from pressure. Saying goodbye felt different, like we were both on the same page for the first time in a long time. Over the following few days, I kept myself first. I kept visiting the gym, learning photography, and spotting brief moments of tranquility. I spent more time with my friends, and even got in touch with a few former ones who had drifted off over the years. Rebuilding those friendships, surrounding myself with people who truly cared about me and who lacked hidden motives, Felt nice. But the more I thought about Liam, the more I realized he was right. He wasn't going anywhere. I had no hurry about things. One evening I texted him just to check in. "Hey, just wanted to say thanks for being so patient with me. I could take my time, figure out who I was, and if there was anything between us, it would happen naturally. Though sluggish, I believe I am improving. Hope you're doing well." His response was practically instantaneous. "No difficulty at all. Take your time. I am here whenever you are ready." It was easy, yet meant a lot. This type of help and this level of understanding were foreign to me. I was not sure where things would go with Liam. He seemed to be the only person in my life not attempting to push me or alter me. He just accepted me for who I was, even in my broken, flawed state. For now, though, I was good with it. Things with my mother had kept getting better. Though we still had our flashes, we were both trying, and enough for me as well. It was not a fairy tale. I only wanted her to show up, and she was doing that. I did not need her to be flawless. It was not a simple cure-all. Still, it was real. The weeks passed, and I discovered myself in an unusual sort of equilibrium. Though it wasn't exactly what I had envisioned it would be, my life was mine, and I was learning to embrace that. Still, there were times when I felt as if I was walking a tightrope and not sure what the next step would bring. But that made all the difference, since I had given up attempting to regulate everything. One evening I was sitting in my room, my camera on the desk in front of me. I was starting to realize that sometimes you simply have to keep moving ahead. You don't have to have everything sorted out right immediately. Recently, I had been experimenting with several views, angles, and lighting in my growing passion for photography. It was more than simply a pastime now. It was a means of expression for things I couldn't put into words and a source of energy. Working on a new project, I was catching the little quiet moments of life that sometimes got missed. Though it was easy, it seemed significant. I had just finished editing some pictures when Liam texted me. I hadn't heard from him in a few days, so I didn't want to read too much into it. But when I saw his name show up, I couldn't help the small flutter in my chest. "Hey, are you free tonight? We could get food or anything else," I was thinking. Not under pressure, only a chance to hang out. I grinned at the statement. It was merely an invitation to spend time with him. Nothing weighty. Sounds fantastic. I loved that about him, that he was ready to let things develop naturally, and that he wasn't always trying to define what we were. "I would meet you at 7. Excellent." When I got to the restaurant, Liam was waiting for me immediately. He motioned me over, his regular easy smile lighting up his face when he spotted me. We had been through a lot in the last few weeks, but right now it felt like everything was in the right place. We sat down, ordered our dinner, and started chatting casually but with the ease that came from knowing each other well. The chat came naturally, like if we were picking up where we left off. Big pronouncements and awkward silences were not necessary. It was simply comfortable. "How then is the photography?" Taking a taste of his drink, he asked. "Good. I find myself really getting into this. You know, it's sort of taken up as my thing, a means of relaxation and mental clarity." "That's great. You seem to be driven about this. When you're behind the camera, you're always incredibly focused." I grinned at the comment. Indeed, I can find myself buried in it. When I'm photographing, the world sort of disappears. He nodded, his face contemplative. That makes sense. Also, lately I have been somewhat busy pondering on about us, where we are headed. My stomach slightly contracted at the reference to it. Though I wasn't sure if I was ready for that chat, I knew it was coming. I started gently, selecting my words carefully. "Liam, and I've been doing a lot of thinking too. In relation, everything. About where I am in life. And I need you to know something." He arched an eyebrow, totally focused on me now. "What's up?" My voice firm but uncertain, I added, "I'm not sure what's going to happen with us. I worry about you. I definitely do. I'm still discovering who I am, though, hence I wouldn't want to bring you into anything right now." Liam remained silent for a minute, staring at me. "I don't want to damage you by hurrying into something I'm not quite ready for." His expression eluded me. Therefore, for a moment, I considered perhaps I had spoken the incorrect thing. I might have pushed him away, but then he grinned, gentle and sympathetic. "I understand it. Yes, I do. You have gone through a lot. I do not want to burden you anymore. Olivia, whenever you're ready, here is me. I'll wait." His remarks really affected me more than I anticipated. I had not understood how much I needed that comfort, how much I needed to hear someone ready to wait for me, without hurrying me, without attempting to push anything. Thank you. It was a unique sort of generosity and made me want to be better. Not only for him, but for myself too. That means more to me than you know. The rest of dinner passed without any more intense conversation. We kept things simple, savoring the cuisine and our company. Being with him once more felt great, free from the weight of expectation hovering over us. I wasn't sure where we stood, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. As we left the restaurant, I couldn't help but feel hopeful. It went beyond Liam, or even our relationship. The next morning I woke up early and decided to go for a run. It was about me, about how I was beginning to take control of my own life, how I was starting to find my way back to myself. Though I hadn't been running in some time, I needed to clear my head. Running over the peaceful neighborhood, the light was just starting to rise and softly illuminated the streets. Running helped me consider everything that had happened, the ups and downs, the heartbreak, the healing, while I was outside, moving my body and allowing my mind to stray. And I became aware. I was good. I had been so bent on repairing everything, on finding a way to make everything great, that I had forgotten that it was good to not have all the answers. Perfect was not the definition of life. It was about learning, developing, and living right now. As I slowed down to gather my breath near the end of my run, I felt for the first time in a long time just that. Now the sun was squarely up, and everything felt. I was learning to welcome the uncertainty and to realize I didn't have to have everything worked out right now, and that was plenty on its own. A few weeks had gone by since that evening with Liam, and life was beginning to find a beat. I was learning to travel the ebb and flow of life with an open mind, not living in continual uncertainty. Though everything wasn't ideal, I was finding serenity in the quiet times, in the space between the turmoil. I had kept up with my photography, and it had evolved from a pastime to a means of connecting with the environment around me, seeing beauty in the most everyday objects. My starting project, a series of honest, transient events, was developing, and looking at my expanding portfolio made me feel fulfilled. I had come to accept the flaws that distinguished every photo and had stopped hoping for the ideal one. It was a Sunday morning when I received a text from Liam, a reminder that life, like photography, was about appreciating the ones that came easily rather than trying to catch every ideal moment. Though our hectic lifestyles had kept us apart, I hadn't seen him recently. There was no pressure. We had both discovered that staying in touch did not need continual contact. "Hey, are you free to get coffee today? I wanted to chat with you about something." I felt a little knot of interest tighten in my chest. "Yes, when? How about the regular venue at 2 p.m.? I nodded, and a few hours later I was seated across from him at the coffee shop where we had first met. It felt strangely full circle, as though we were returning to the start, but not in the manner I had anticipated. This time there was no hurry or doubt. Liam sat down across from me and gazed at me with that familiar, open expression. There was simply a quiet awareness between us. Before he spoke, there was a quiet that suggested something was weighing on him. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, his voice calm but firm. "About us, where things are headed." My heart skipped just a little, though I wasn't sure I was ready for it. I had been waiting for this talk. That felt different now, though. "I know we've been taking things slow, and I respect that," he said, like we were both in a position where we could talk honestly and frankly, free from concern of what the other would say. "I am good with you knowing you need time. I desire not to live in perpetual uncertainty, nevertheless." I took a deep breath, contemplating his remarks. I had been holding back since I didn't want to hurry you, but also didn't want to waste time acting as though I'm not ready to move forward. Not because I didn't care about him, but more because I was still adjusting personally. I had been avoiding this talk. I needed time to realize what I wanted, from my own life as much as from him, And in that instant, I knew I was at last ready to confront that uncertainty head-on. "Liam," I began, my voice steady but full of feeling, "I care about you. Indeed I do. I have, however, also come to see that I have to quit holding myself back in my life generally as much as in this relationship. I have to start believing that I will work it out as I go. I cannot wait for everything to feel right." His eyes grew moist. "I understand. And now, Olivia, I am here. You do not need to possess all the solutions. I just need you to be straight with me." I felt a flood of comfort come over me. "You also need to know that I am not going anywhere." I exactly needed to hear this. I felt as though I was not traveling this road by myself for the first time in a long time. Maybe it was fine. We didn't have to have it all figured out. The uncertainty was only another aspect of the process. It was not frightening. "I think I'm ready," I replied softly, looking at him. "I want to find out even if I'm not sure what this looks like. Together." There was a stop. Then Liam grinned. That was a smile that carried a promise rather than an expression. "I'm in." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of discussion, laughter, and the kind of lightheartedness only comes with when you're totally at ease with someone. As I walked home later that day, the weight in my chest had dropped. We discussed everything and nothing, sliding into the comfort of old habits while still realizing that we were both developing, both changing. I wasn't staring over my shoulder at past mistakes or questioning whether I was headed in the correct direction, first in a long time. Knowing that it was all right not to have it all figured out, I was looking ahead, not with all the answers, but with serenity. The next few days were a flurry of work, picture sessions, and quiet times of introspection. But inside me something had changed. I no longer expected life to present the solutions. I was beginning to own my tale. I was at last seeing that I had no need for everything scheduled. A week later, Liam and I went on a little excursion, nothing too grand, just a weekend vacation to a tiny town close by. Life was messy, and that was all right. It was an opportunity for us to just enjoy each other's company, free from the hectic demands of our life, free from expectations. And during that period, I discovered something else I hadn't quite understood before. Love in all its manifestations was not about perfection. It had nothing to do with timing or situational fit. It was about being there, about showing up for one another, even in less than perfect circumstances. The trip turned out to be a turning point, a moment when everything came together. Though we were moving one step at a time, jointly, we were not rushing into anything. And for the first time in months, I felt precisely where I wanted to be. Things between us were more calm when we got home. Not in a fixed manner, but in one that seemed consistent and real. We were fine with the knowledge that the future was unknown. The narrative wasn't over, but for the first time I wasn't terrified of what came next. We just needed to be there for each other. We didn't need all the answers. Whatever it was, I felt I would be fine.